Where's Mark when you need him?
Okay, we are on.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait till you get seated. Fourth time is the charm or third time?
You know, I think it's just for future reference. If you just hit it like that, that's, if you press in, it doesn't work. It's very temperamental, as I'm just finding out.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Harwich Finance Committee meeting. It is Thursday, February 27th. It's 5 o'clock. We are recording this meeting. Anyone in the audience who intends to record this, please check in with the chair. I don't see any indication of that, so otherwise we will proceed. I'll call the meeting to order. For the record, Finance Committee members who are here in person, Dan Twerk, Mark Kelleher, Scott Norum, Bob McCready, Michelle Gallucci, and Peter Hughes. So we do have a quorum, and I declare a quorum, so I'm just making a note.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Do
Yep.
we need to do something that says start my session for the online people?
Try it. Go for it. Go for it. See if anybody's out there.
I'm not a techie.
Okay. All right, so the first item is to approve minutes, and we have minutes of February 10th, 2025. That's the joint meeting we have with the Board of Selectmen. 17 pages of minutes, so we'll be there for a while. Could I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and second to accept the minutes of February 10th. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Oh, Dan, I forgot you. I didn't see you down there. Bob?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Dana, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We're going to count you in. Hang on, I write you down. Did you just vote for the minutes? Ooh, you got an echo.
Yeah, I'm getting rid of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, under new business, we had the Monomoy, you want to go somewhere?
No, I'm just looking at my pen.
Monomoy Regional School District FY 2026 budget. Scott Carpenter and Michael McMillan here to present to us. And we're going to be able to see it on the
I
screen?
think I just need to be a presenter.
Okay. Bear with us, technology is a beautiful thing.
And we also have with us Dr. Robin Millen, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Inspection
Welcome.
Assessment.
What's her name?
I don't know. We're making you the presenter.
Oh, that's great.
What do you see this? And just a point of clarification, the material you're going to provide tonight is the same presentation you sent us by email before. Pretty much.
What does it say on the one you already received on the email? There's
says-
basically two versions of the budget. One's February.
Okay, the first says, the one we have, draft first vote January 2025.
So this is a new version.
This one that says February is different
Yeah,
than
so
this one.
since so
Okay.
a couple of things. I mean, these things are always changing all, but the major things was health insurance came in between that January presentation and the February presentation. So we had the health insurance number. We had some other cost increases along the way as well.
Okay,
This is the same slide deck that we presented 2 nights ago at the select board meeting.
right. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Dana, can you see that online?
Yes, I can. Thank you
Okay,
very
good.
much.
All right.
All right. So thank you very much, Finance Committee, for having us here this evening. We'll give an overview of the budget. I mean, I'll start by actually concentrating a lot on the assessments because that's where the rubber hits the road for the town. And then I'll give a bit more information on what's driving the budget increase, and then kind of finalise with an overlook of where that all fits with, other districts, and give you a sense of how reasonable the Monomoy request is. So, but in summary, we do know that our enrollment is going down slightly at the moment, and we project it to go down more, but we are seeing the needs of students is increasing, and that's driving a need for resources. Partly a fallout from COVID, but also just changing needs amongst our students, and also increasing need for special education services. So that is in an environment where we're seeing employee costs, including health insurance, increase. We know we have these job market pressures all over the state, but particularly here on the Cape, and that is driving the cost of recruitment and retention. We have our new employee contracts, which were influenced by that, and we've also seen the cost of providing services to students go up, and the cost of maintaining our buildings and so on. And also, as the needs of our students has gone up, that's also driven need for more professional development to ensure we have the capacity, capabilities within the staff that we have. And so that's also, you'll see that reflected in the budget as well. So our budget request at the moment, and this is not the final version of the budget, that will be in a couple of weeks' time, but this version of the budget, which is pretty close, is $49,702,461. So an increase of 6.86%. So that's our budget. That's not your assessment. That's our budget. The assessment for Harwich, and I'll come on to the actual number, but it's an increase of 1.6 million, 5.4% for Harwich, and 908,000 for Chatham, which is 8.8% increase for Chatham. And we'll talk about why it's different. It's with the two towns. It's driven by enrolment, amongst other things. So that's why it changes for the two towns. So that says, so it's 49.7 million, an increase of almost 3.2 million, and a 6.86%. And just to show this, there's a little delay here, but this is a little hard to see, but it just gives you a sense of how this increase sits in the context of our historical increases. This is higher than we've requested and received in the past. The only one that was previously higher than this was back in FY15, and that was really to do with the high school debt coming online. So when we started paying the high school debt, there was an increase in assessments to pay for that construction project.
Do you think this year is an aberration, or do you see this kind of going?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't want to say it's going to be a hostage.
No, I'm not going to hold you to it.
I think there are particular pressures right now. I think that this has partly been a difficult year. Like, I think, partly what we're seeing, we had the ESSER funding, federal funding to support the schools coming out of COVID. So that's now gone away, and we're still kind of dealing with the impact of that no longer being available, while the needs that we need to meet are still there. So
that's still disappearing, going from 25 to 26?
Well, no, that was last year.
Funding?
Yeah,
Okay.
So it was 24. So we had a tiny bit this year, but we're still seeing those needs. We're still trying to cover some of those salaries. So we've seen that increase. Enrollment is going down. So right now, I mean, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. Right now, we have the highest enrollment at the high school that's ever been. So the high schools like bursting at the seams. We've had this bubble coming up. So, but next year and thereafter, it starts to go down. So, I'm sure next year I'll be saying, yeah, it's going down, but needs are still high. But at the same time, as enrollment goes down.
Yeah. I guess my question is, are we going to see 7% forever?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think
I'm sure you get into the weeds of
towards
that.
the end of
Yeah.
the slide deck, Michael has a slide that really talks about drivers, and some of those drivers we can look at and sit there and say, okay, these are sort of beyond our control, and so property insurance has become the annual
Yeah.
increases on property insurance across the board for the town and us are insane. Just what that percent increase is. So you have those drivers that seem beyond our control. Health insurance, for the town and us, we were budgeting 10, came in at 6.5. Still higher than we like, but we never know when it's when it's going to go back up. There's a driver in this that was quite significant, which is these highly expensive out of district placements for children with severe special needs. Again, it's a 1 year phenomena that this has hit us. It doesn't take very many very expensive placements to go and skew it.
Yeah.
But again, you just so the hope is if that is a one-time thing, that you're going to see a number that is significantly less than 6% in the out year. But,
Okay.
you know, and I think, you know, my understanding is that, you know, that there have been times before we were monopoly that, you know, that the town of Harwich had, you know, had a few of those expensive out-of-district placements, and, you know, it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
I know. All right, I'm gonna keep quiet so you can
Yeah.
get through your slides.
All right, so, all right. So this just shows how the budget's funded. Yeah, so basically the way the regional agreement works is that we come up with the budget number, and then we subtract from that funding that we have from other sources other than the towns. The primary one being Chapter 70, which is the state's vehicle for funding education. That makes up the bulk of that state and other revenue amount, and that went up. And so that's one of the changes from January. It went up more than we were expecting. This is, you know, the way the state. So that's the current draft of the state budget. That can change, but ultimately we kind of draw a line with what we have, and that's the number we use. Regional transportation has gone up. That is a little bit of a glitch. The reason it's gone up. Again, we use a number from the state, and then if the number we actually end up receiving is higher than that, that's surplus we can use for future years. So we actually had a big surplus last year, so we're using that this year. It was just a kind of funky thing, the way the first draft of the budget had versus a later draft of the budget, the state budget. So that will not be repeated, and that's why we see a big increase. But hopefully, normally it should be around more like 700,000-800,000. It was quite low the year before. So excess and deficiency, that's a bit like free cash for towns. So that's basically, you know, I mean, it's all the money that the town, the district has at the end of the year. It is certified by the state. We have an auditor who helps us submit that. And ours is just over $2.5 million at the end of 2024. So that's just been certified by DLS. And so previously, for the last few years, we've used $800,000 from excess and deficiency, and each year we've ended up with around 2.5 million we've ended each year. So we've not been reducing that. This year, we've budgeted $1 million. So we've increased the offset to help reduce the assessments.
Mm-hmm.
So
What was the addition to excess and deficiency in fiscal _24?
So,
Certified.
yeah, it's a great question. So it comes from a bunch of things. So partly it was, we've been investing our, our balance, if you like, month to month. And we've been, we have a treasurer. He's been here a couple of years now, but he's sort of aggressively trying to get, invest in treasury bonds just to make sure we're maximising return on investment. And so that's helped increase.
What was the amount? I know it comes from all sorts of different sources, but how much was added in 24? The balance was 2.5, but how much was added?
It was pretty much, I want to say like 100,000, not much, but it does get complicated because we planned to spend from it. We planned to spend like around 800,000.
Okay.
So
You might have added 900, but spent 800.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. Yeah. And that's partly the interest. We also had some money from FEMA related to that we finally received related to a COVID, because when they made it an emergency, we submitted an application, got money, so that helped. Those are kind of two of the main issues. So then once all that money is taken out, then the assessment formula is applied, and that produces these two numbers here for Harwich's assessment and Chatham's assessment. So 51.5.
And that's
million.
based on enrollment?
So yes, and it used to be really simple. So it used to be just you took these things off the top, and then you basically used foundation enrollment, which is all the kids that live in the towns, whether or not they who go to public school, whether or not it's Monomoy. So say they live here but they go to Nauset, they're included in your foundation enrollment. So it was basically that number and actual district enrollment. Those are the two numbers that were used to divide up the assessments. However, we changed it a couple of years ago, and actually, let's see. I can jump ahead. Here we go. Actually, I'll just jump ahead a few slides. So this shows how those assessments have changed recently. And what we did back in 2023, sorry, I jumped ahead a couple of slides. But if you look at that slide, in 2023, we changed the assessment formula so that each town pays for its own elementary school. So it used to be that the elementary schools, so essentially, I mean, rough numbers, but roughly Harwich paid, say, 75% of both elementary schools. Chatham paid 25%, roughly, year to year it changed, but 25% of both elementary schools. But after 2023 and going in, Chatham pays 100% of the net cost of Chatham Elementary School. Harwich pays 100% of the net cost of Harwich Elementary School. And so why that made this big difference, that you see that increase of 11.6% for Chatham Elementary, for town of Chatham in 2023, because the cost, you know, Chatham, although it's a small school, and actually because it's a small school, the per student cost is higher, and so when they took on 100% of that, that was greater than 25% of both schools. Does that make sense? So, yes.
Question. Before I ask my question, if you recall, I worked for State Ag, New York State Education.
Right, yeah,
for
right, yeah, I do remember.
4 years, I must
Yeah.
admit. But in New York, there were separate formulas for special needs kids as opposed to
Uh-huh.
here.
Yeah.
Is that the case in Massachusetts?
So, yes. So when Chapter 70 is calculated, the state looks at our enrollment and looks at the makeup of our enrollment, like if they're special education or if they're English language learners, also income ratings, and we get a certain amount of money depending on those characteristics, and that goes into, so that number of the state and other funding, that's included Chapter 70, and that reflects those special education needs.
Are there separate formulas for children with severe disabilities?
So yeah, so there's another fund which I actually mentioned here in a little bit called Circuit Breaker, which is a grant from the state to help fund high special education costs.
Yeah.
And we get a significant amount of money from that each year, and that's used to offset the budget.
Because in my experience, the special needs kids, they really drove a good part of your budget. Do you track that in any manner?
Yes. So the way we structure our budget, special education costs can be identified within our other costs. And so I don't have the numbers to hand, but yes, I would say it's a significant part of our budget. But you know, we need to meet the needs of all of our students, and that's how we meet it.
Yeah, I don't mean to single out special needs kids, but it is a factor.
Significant, yeah.
Yes.
And in the cost of meeting those needs has increased. You know, the diversity of needs and the type of needs and the cost of meeting those needs has increased across the board in the last year.
Okay,
As
so
you know,
I don't want to cut this off, but I am, because we got to get through the whole presentation by 6, so
If you'd like, I'd love
yeah,
to
you
talk
can have
more.
a follow-up with them afterwards.
So,
Sorry.
Peter, can people speak up because of this
oh,
fan blowing?
yeah.
I'm like,
Or you could move up front.
I don't think that's gonna make any difference, the fan is right here.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Yes. So assessments. So assessments used to be based only on enrollment. Now they're the elementary school first, and that has made a big difference. So you can see what this chart shows is how the budget has been funded in the last few years. So that the dark blue block is state and other funding. There's then a sort of small yellow line, and that's our excess and deficiency. A lighter block, which is the Chatham assessment, and a grey block, which is the Harwich assessment. So for 21 and 22, well, 21 was a funky year because that was during COVID, but you know, Harwich assessment went up of almost 1%, but the Chatham assessment actually went down. Same thing happened the following year. Chatham assessment went down, whereas Harwich assessment increased. Then we made the change, and at that point, Harwich's assessment went down just by 0.2%, whereas Chatham's assessment increased by almost 12%. And then since then, the increases have not been so, starkly different. Like, so Harwich's 4.3 to Chatham's 2.1, then Chatham's 6.2 to Harwich 4.9, and then this year it's 8.8 versus 5.4. So I do think that change has made a big difference to the share. This is just more about that excess and deficiency. So we actually I do have that certified now. So what this chart shows is each of these blue lines is our excess and deficiency as of the end of the fiscal year. And the orange line shows, so we have to use, if our excess and deficiency is more than 5% of our operating budget, we have to return that money back to the towns. And the way we do that is by reducing your assessment when using that money to fund the budget. So, as you can see, where it has, when the excess and deficiency has been above that threshold, it's relatively small, and we're always using much more than that to offset the budget. So you can see the highest was around, $300,000 that year. We used 800,000. So we're always using a significant amount of the excess and deficiency to reduce assessments, and this year will be the highest we've ever used, $1 million. And then just to come back to that point about how when we change the assessment formula, that continues to make a big difference. And if we were still using the old original method, the assessment to Harwich should be $1.3 million higher than it is right now. So still continues to have impact. And so still talking about how we're funding the budget. So one of the things, and this comes back to your question, Michelle, about how the formula works. So it uses foundation enrollment. So what this chart shows you is two things. The blue line is the minimum local contribution, which is an amount set by the state. And the orange line is the foundation enrollment, which is that number I talked about earlier, and which is key in determining the foundation enrollment, and also is used in it's key in determining the minimum local contribution, and also is key in the assessment formula. So the reason the minimum local contribution is important, because the way the formula works is the first thing that each town is assessed is the minimum local contribution. So you assess that, and then that's what you have to pay, and then everything above that we split up using foundation enrollment and the elementary schools and so on. It's got so complicated.
I have a question. So,
Yeah.
does that mean that when you're determining the foundation rate for Harwich and for Chatham, they're different because of their demographics are different, and so that's impacting
So
the?
yes, it does impact. So it does impact it's the numbers. So that minimum local contribution is determined by property values and town income. So the income from DO, Department of Revenue, the state, and foundation enrollment. So just the number of students. So those things do influence the minimum local contribution. It's not a direct, the way it influences it is a little complicated, because you have the minimum local contribution is assessed to town. So it's really how the share of the joint minimum local contribution changes that impacts the assessments, because it just how much of our total budget is covered by minimum local contribution, because above that it's still split up using the formula.
There's also a funkiness to the Chapter 70 and how this breaks out. While the formula looks at sort of relative wealth of the town, for towns that are in the top 20% of relative wealth, it sort of caps the contribution. So the state basically says that that the state should be contributing something even to a Weston or an Egerton.
Right.
And so the closer Harwich gets to that sort of threshold, the less difference that formula actually, or the less that formula treats Harwich and Chatham separately.
Right.
Because if Chatham's above that threshold and Harwich is just minusculely below, the state treats them almost identically, even though we all can acknowledge there is a difference. But the state, it's the way the formula operates.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm not
Sorry.
seeing anything for preschool special education. Does
They're coming.
Massachusetts? Oh, we are?
We're getting there. Yeah. It might be worthwhile at some point outside the budget season if we came in and talked about,
Sure.
gave you just more of the detail on how Chapter 70 works and how the assessment formula works, because it's
Summer school.
there you go, perfect.
And
And then, so one thing to highlight is that the orange line is foundation enrollment, and it's hard to see on the slide, but actually this year Harwich's went down slightly, and Chatham's went up slightly. I think it was a delta of 9 students. So
Wow.
it's not a huge difference. It's just, it's worth highlighting for 2 reasons. One is it's unusual. In the last few years, it's been the other way around it. Chatham enrollment has gone down, where Harwich's has either gone down less quickly or stayed around the same. So it's just that. And so this year, that impacts the minimum local contribution, and that's partly why Chatham is getting more assessment this year. But it doesn't this year because it's not in the assessment formula, but it will impact the future assessment formulas as well in future years when that number is reflected in our formulas because of.
Do you do enrollment projections into like the future, like
Yes.
10 years or something?
Yes.
Because as we know, we're trying to get affordable housing, could be something built in West Harwich. I mean, that's going to bring families and kids in, I would think.
So I do projections of both the district enrollment, and I've got that up here, and I do also do foundation enrollment projections. I haven't included them here, but that is something I could share.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And of course, once you get beyond
Although,
5 years,
yeah.
it starts.
Yeah.
Because we're at this point where the children that are going to be entering kindergarten haven't even been born. So a lot of it depends on, will those projects, development projects happen?
Yeah.
And what will, the birth rates be?
Yeah,
looking,
I get it.
5 years.
Am I going to push you on?
I know.
And you have to speak up.
What time is it? I'll
Linda
stop
So-
asking questions.
So basically that's how we fund the budget, right? It's the town's assessments, which are impacted by the foundation enrollment, which we've seen this all change, state numbers, and available funding from the state. So I want to now talk a little bit about what you get for your assessment and what's driving our budget and what's driving our budget increases. So this chart just shows you by major account, which is just a categorization which we get from the state, which is a nice way to be able to compare its expenditure year to year. And this just shows you how it breaks down. So you can see that the light blue segment there, that's our teacher salaries. So as you would expect, it is the bulk of our expenditure. And then if you add in the grey, which is benefits and fixed benefits mostly for all staff, it does also include a couple of other things, but it's primarily benefits. So you can see together that's 50% of our salary, of our costs. Other notable things: operations and maintenance, that's at 9% down there. Other teaching services, which includes instructional assistance for students, and that's one of the things that special education needs has driven up the need for additional instructional aids to support students in the classroom. Pupil services, which includes transportation. So you can, hopefully this gives you a sense of the scope of our budget. And debt and retirement service, which really should be debt, retirement and service, because that's basically us paying off our debt for the high school. And then this is really kind of for interest, here how this compares to FY16, so 10 years. So I thought, sometimes it's hard to see the trends when we just look at year to year. So if we look back 10 years, we can see how things have changed. And I just thought it was interesting to see that benefits and fixed charges are more than they were, are higher now. They take up a bigger part of our budget, and that comes back to Superintendent's point earlier, how a lot of what's driving our budget we don't have that much control over, including health insurance increases. Also, debt has actually gone down. So the debt payments 10 years ago were higher because that included higher amounts in the high school, but as I'm sure we'll talk about, we have more projects coming on which will increase that number.
They changed the
And
color.
I just wanted to highlight one other one, which is programs with other districts, which is this kind of brownish on the segment down low on those. And so that includes school choice. So that's money we pay out for students who attend other districts. That including that number is also other it's like special education placements, but the biggest part is school choice. And school choice has gone down. So the number of students choosing to leave Monomoy to go to other school districts has gone down in the last 10 years. And we like to think that's a testament to how much the Monomoy has delivered for students and how attractive the high school is in keeping students in the district.
So what sort of numbers are you taking in and sending out? Sort of,
We take in more than we send out.
yeah.
I might be able to, as we go, I've got
Okay.
the number right here. I might be able to get it as we
You
talk.
take in from towns other than Chatham and Harwich?
Yes, so we have like students from
School
from
choice.
school choice in from
How do they pay,
Hornets.
or how do their towns pay?
So for school choice, that comes in, it's basically, it's a state program. We report those students to the state and they take money off of those towns. So when they actually deduct it from their Chapter 70 funding and give it to us.
But that's only a portion of the cost.
So it's $5,000, give or $5,000 to
It's like when we
$6,000.
send out, the
Yes.
receiving community is getting money.
We also send out $5,000 to
But we're net
$6,000.
importers, so
We're net
kind of
importers.
losing money on
and
this
this
So, yeah,
$5,000 deal.
so
right?
we're,
No, well, no, because of the way we manage it.
yeah, so we have a very deliberate strategy on how to manage that. And I appreciate when I first came to Monomoy 12 years ago, I talked to Dr. Craig, the longtime superintendent in Harwich, and she was, give me the primer, and she's like, Scott, there are options. You could have a classroom, let's say, that has 15 children in it, has a teacher, has the lights on, and you can fill 3 seats with children and get $15,000 to help offset your budget. Or you can have dust be in those seats. Alternatively, you may have 30 families that want to have their child in kindergarten. If you fill up a classroom of children, there's not enough funding coming in at $5,000 a piece to go support the budget. It becomes a financial loss, and the taxpayers end up
You've got all
subsidizing.
sorts of step
Yeah,
functions in your budget.
so we have approached school choice throughout as looking at this as a free seat model, where we bring in to fill out class sizes.
So you can choose how many to bring in?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, you said how many for each grade or whatever.
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
And so we never add a class, we just fill a class, so.
But looking long term, and this is also something else where we're being very conscious of looking out for long range projections.
Right.
There are fewer and fewer children on Cape Cod, period. It's 2-decade trend. It's not going to change, or there's no sight that's going to change anytime in the projections. So when we started Monomoy 12 years ago, there were 6 sections of kindergarten at Harwich Elementary School, 3 sections at Chatham Elementary, 9 sections of kindergarten. 9 sections has become 4 sections at Harwich Elementary School, 1 at Chatham Elementary School, so there's only 5 sections. So there are fewer classrooms that could have free seats.
Right.
So the amount of money we're bringing in will decrease over time, and we have to make sure that we're not relying on the same number over time. So that's built into our sort of long-term strategy too.
Interesting.
So I have your number, 200, this year, actually it's last year, we don't have final numbers for this year yet, but last year we received 240 students and we received $1.5 million to pay for them, and we sent out 75 students and that cost us $500,000.
Got it.
So, all right. So this slide then, so those same categories that chart was broken up by, this slide just shows how it has changed year to year. And then, so it shows you the name of the category, what was budgeted last year, what's budgeted this year for FY25, next year for FY26, and the change. And then the change is shaded. I should say it's a little misleading, the shading, Robin pointed out. That green doesn't necessarily mean it's a reduction, it just means it's a lot less. It's less adding, it's adding less to the budget. So if it's dark green, it actually is a reduction. Light green is a small increase, and dark red and dark red are higher increases. So, so just to highlight a couple of things. So acquisition, improvement, and placement of fixed assets, that's sort of capital projects. We're just not doing as many capital projects. We are doing debt projects. That's the middle school project, 8%. So that is there, but that's in our debt and retirement service, which is further down. Benefits is obviously that just goes up because it's such a big number, and that 6.5% increase. That also includes our insurance costs, which is also a driver. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of other ones. Pupil services are near the bottom, pupil services, and then teachers is obviously the largest because, again, that's our biggest portion of our budget.
So on your property and I guess liability insurance?
Yeah.
Have you looked at upping deductibles to try and offset the cost?
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I bet everybody sitting
So-
in this room has probably done that
Yeah,
same
so
thing
we,
this
so
year.
yeah, so we sit there, and so we have we use a local insurance agent who I meet with every year, and we go through it and we talk through our options, and it's just, so, and it's a bit of risk, it's a risk assessment.
Sure.
So we seek, so we look to, so we try and reduce our costs, we increase where I work with an insurance agent, and we have increased our deductible in some occasions where it seemed like a good call to me.
Okay.
Like, and so one, I want to tell you a story about it, but I'll save that for another day.
Okay, summer school.
But yes,
I think property insurance is really what's driving most of the increases as opposed to
Yeah.
liability.
Yeah.
Because the
I agree.
replacement cost for property
that's
is
great.
just through the roof.
yeah, liability is
We're
relatively
hearing
low, but
that.
property, and we will have, so when we work with an insurance agent, we'll have one company bid for it. So it's not like we can even choose, we just go with whoever we get, and we'll get one or
Yeah.
two. So,
Wait, so before you get out the red guys,
yes,
so for teachers, do you have bodies and additional bodies, or
yes. well,
that's not
so
all just salary increase, is
it's,
it?
no, it's a net increase, it's a zero net increase in bodies, and
Okay.
I've got a slide
Right.
on that in a moment. So this behind, this is just an opportunity for us to say that although within this context, we are still trying to give students the best possible education to ensure they're continuing to learn, and we're producing graduates that are competent and successful in the workplace, and that is driving some additional requests which are included here in the budget. So we do need a new math curriculum, and there's another, and you'll see in this list is also a number of professional development programs coming back to that need for us to develop the capacity and capabilities within the district to ensure that we're meeting the needs of those students. And this also does include 4 positions that are added, and on the next slide we're actually reducing 4 positions as well. So overall it's a net.
So are these numbers in the budget
Yes.
you've been describing?
Yes.
You've assumed all of these additional
Yes.
requests are granted.
Yes.
And do the salary numbers on this page include the related benefits
Yes.
costs?
Yes.
So,
That $104,000.
104.3, that's a
Yes.
salary of like 80 plus 30%?
Yes. Yep.
Or something like that?
Yes, so I assume that the staff are coming in, so we've looked at historically where we hire staff is like a master step 7 is the average, and that's on the salary grid, so that's what we assume for new hires. And I take the average health insurance for employees, so some employees paying 0, so you might hire somebody who doesn't have any, or somebody who takes a full family plan, and I take the average for all employees, it works out at I think it's like $18,000. So that's not an actual number, it's just the average, and that's what we reflect in this number for budgeting purposes.
And again, some of that, when Michael's saying, a master's step 7, so that's a teacher with 7 years experience. It's actually part of this housing crisis phenomena that we're facing on Cape Cod, that it's become much more challenging for us to go offer a first-year teacher who wants to come to the Cape and work at a first-year teacher salary and have them look at it and say, oh, I can find a place to live here for that
Right.
money. So we've seen in recent years the housing situation has really shifted what that incoming teacher looks like. And Michael often talks about how once upon a time you'd have a retirement and say, okay, we're banking on some savings with the retirement coming in. More often than not, you're replacing that retiree with somebody who's making pretty close to what they were making before, because they're the ones who, let's say, inherited a property that's on the
Right,
Cape,
right.
or now can afford to live here given a higher salary step.
And what's the basic assumption for the increase in salary for a person who's continuing in the same grade and the same?
So we have, the salary, so basically teachers are on a grid, so every year they go up a step, so we just work out where so they've gone up a step, and I know, so for example, it's 3.25% increase, cost of living increase to all steps. So we use a new salary grid, assume they've gone up a step, and that's what we assume for their salary.
Okay.
And then we make an assumption about people increase
So when you say on this chart at the elementary school, you're reducing 2 classroom teachers,
Yes.
are they the same ones that are going up here on this page to be the, huh?
Yeah, so yes,
Or are they different teachers?
You mean individuals? So,
Yeah.
well, at this point, we're just dealing with positions. So we'll make the position. How that plays out with individuals,
Okay.
that will.
Got to post the position.
Yeah, we'll post the position. They could
Okay.
apply for it. I
Okay.
mean, we always hope.
Yeah,
We
it
always
depends on
hope.
their expertise.
We don't actually have to. We always
Yeah.
hope we don't actually
Okay.
lose somebody that we don't want to.
I'm
So
just asking.
yeah, no, it's a good point. But yeah,
The numbers are about the same, so I mean,
and I'm a heartless finance guy. I just deal with the
If
numbers.
this hasn't changed, I got a total of $839,000
That sounds.
of requests on this page,
Yes, that sounds about right.
if it hasn't changed from January.
Yeah, and this also includes at the bottom. You'll see. So this includes 4 positions: 2 English language teachers, because we've seen an increase in the need for a focused teaching for students with who need to learn English as a second language. And so 1 at the high school, we've seen an increase.
Do you find that you're having more of your staff across the board commuting from off Cape than you used to, due to that same problem?
I would say not necessarily coming off from Cape, but further afield on Cape is
Yeah,
what I would
I
roughly
think that's
say.
probably more accurate.
You know, like Yarmouth, Falmouth, and
there are a few
Barnstable.
who cross the bridges, but I think we're finding fewer who are in Harwich and Chatham.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, or Harwich, Chatham, Brewster, and it's and maybe more that are finding something in Yarmouth, Barnstable area.
Yeah, I did map that out actually, so that's something we could look at.
so the 2 full-time equivalents that are being
Yeah.
added, Chatham Elementary,
Yes,
that's borne by Chatham,
yes,
not Harwich.
100%.
Right, okay. Got it.
So that's I think
Whereas the ones at the high school are shared based on a rate.
yes, exactly. So, so then to some, because Peter's looking ahead, so these are the positions we've reduced. So we've reduced, are we planning to reduce 2 classroom teachers, one at Harwich Elementary School and one at the middle school, just based on class sizes, because class sizes are lower, and it's, Scott, I think you kind of mentioned, like, we reach a point, it's kind of, you lose 4 or 5 students and it doesn't really make that much difference, but then when you you reduce 7 or 8 in the same grade, then you're able to reduce a section. So it's never like it's not an easy slope down, it kind of steps down. So,
So at Harwich Elementary School, we have 4 sections of kindergarten this year. We have 5 sections of first grade. So next year we'll have 1 less first grade teacher.
and then also with preschool, so we saw this big increase in pre-K coming out of COVID. So we had these big numbers of students who needed additional, because this is I should have said, our pre-K is a special education program. So it's for students that are pre-K age who need special education services and education and get them ready for going into kindergarten. So we saw a big increase in those numbers coming out of COVID, but now as we seem to have kind of reverted back to the norm, we see those numbers going down, and that's why we're reducing 2 positions from our pre-K staffing and consolidating the special education preschool program at Harwich Elementary School, and reducing these numbers. So the budget does also include some other capital projects, like I mentioned. We're replacing carpet at the middle school and Chatham Elementary School, and we need a new vehicle for the high school. We continue to put money. We have a stabilisation fund, a capital stabilisation fund, which is money we put aside in case something goes spectacularly wrong that we need additional funds for, like the boiler failed and we weren't able to meet that within the operating budget. We'd be able to use the stabilisation fund. And
Is that an annual contribution?
every year we put
$50,000?
$50,000 on there. It's at, I want to say, like $300,000 right now.
300?
Yeah, I think so. I have it written down somewhere. Yeah, a little more because we've made interest on it. And then, so then also we restructured our high school debt. So that's the long-term debt. It's like 28-year debt, I think. So we're still paying it off. But this year we went out and rebid it and lowered the rates. So that captured some savings for the district. So that's offsetting the additional increase in debt that we've added for the middle school project. So, we have this project to replace, I'm looking at Mark because he's on the building committee. We have this project to replace the siding at the middle school, that the first short-term payment on that is reflected in this budget. And that will, but because of the reduction from restructuring the high school debt, that offset that increase. You know, so we've touched on a lot of these things. These are just kind of specific factors that are driving increases in the budget. A property budget requests, which are net of the reductions we're making, which is why it comes out a little less than 800. Property insurance, staffing, that's just steps and lanes and contractual improvement agreements. Health insurance, building maintenance. So building maintenance has been going up a lot, still going up, just not as much as it was. So knock on wood, I think it's kind of leveling off at a more reasonable level. Increased, you know, like significantly in the last few years, just as the cost of like HVAC maintenance, building repairs has just really skyrocketed in the last few years. It seems to.
How much do you spend on that maintenance?
Oh, so that's a.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Is it in here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So and then out of district tuition. So that's just what the superintendent spoke about earlier. Special education placements for students who are not able to meet their needs in the district.
Just maintenance.
And roughly how many students are involved with that?
Roughly
how many?
Yeah, I want to say like 18, 20. I was looking at the list today, like 20 in that range. 20.
Okay.
In that range, in that, and so that's why, you know, if one or two come in, it can make a big difference in residential cost. If you're a student on a residential school, you know, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
But on average, it's 15,000 to 16,000 a piece if you have 20.
So out of district, so if you're, this is out of district, so say you have special education needs and we send you to a public, another public school, that's about, I would say the average is about $60,000 a year for a day program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just point of information, that 309 is the increase, not the
Oh,
total.
okay.
Oh,
I'm
sorry, yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. So
Got
that's
it.
the total increase.
That's a
So
big
the
deal.
absolute maintenance is, the 80K is an increase,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah,
absolute
okay.
number is how much?
Absolute number is, so there is, so
Just curious.
I can give you a better breakdown in a minute, but the
I can get it
all
later.
the operations and maintenance is $4.4 million.
Okay.
But that does include energy, that includes our electricity, utility bills and so on. All right,
That's broken out on page 14.
yeah.
Michelle.
No, I was like, how did they do it for $80,000? Oh
I
my
wish.
God.
So just the way the budget works, we work out the budget, but before we calculate this, we reduce the budget for where we have other funds to reduce. So when you see the budget number, that is net of some other like grants and other funds that help to offset the budget. So each year we estimate what those will be for the following year, and then we reduce the budget by that amount, and that's the number you see. So these are the biggest numbers, these are the sort of most significant numbers, the most significant funds that we have available. So Title I, that's a federal grant, as is IDEA grant. So you can see, so for example, you can see in 2024 we had that big yellow block, and that was the ESSER, the federal funding for coming out of COVID. So
A question, do you
Yeah.
anticipate any changes to Title I based on what we've been hearing, or are you guys kind of just projecting as,
So we are, at the moment, we're projecting as is.
yeah,
We'll
as
wait
is?
for more
'Cause-
information.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we have some thoughts, but at the moment, we're just assuming it will remain the same. So the biggest chunk of that right now is school choice. So that's that dark blue block, and it's the second at the top. So one of the things you can see is we've budgeted 1.4, 1.4, 1.5, because that's how much so next year we're budgeting 1.7. So we're actually increasing our reliance on school choice because we have to help reduce the budget. Likewise, a circuit breaker. So that's the second from the bottom. That's that light blue number. So that is circuit breaker is the money we receive from the state to support special education students. So we are increased our reliance on that. We receive money each year, and we're kind of going to use a year and a half's worth to offset some of those costs because we've seen a big increase there. Yeah.
So on this page,
Yes.
where you show the flow of the funds, does this 3.2 2 million or so, is that part of the 4.9 in the first
No.
line here?
No. So it's a little funky the way the regional agreement works is that, so when you look, if you go back, when you see our whole budget is minus that 3.2 million. So our true budget, if you like, would be what we're asking for plus 3.2 million. But we already netted out these costs before we finalised the budget.
So it's more than 49 million? It's
Yes.
3.2 more than 49
Yes,
million?
exactly.
Okay, got it.
As it has been for years.
Yep.
That's all we
Thank you for only asking 49 million.
Yeah, yeah, there you go, right?
Yeah.
So these funds, so these grants have been deducted from the budget from school choice. So
Michael,
yes,
do you bill Medicaid for any of the?
yes, we do. So we do, and that actually is included. So I'm sorry, it's so confusing. That is included in the state and other revenue number, and we have seen a slight increase in that.
Okay.
So Medicaid is an administrative burden, and it's a lot of work. And we've been trying really, to really improve recording and reporting to increase the amount of money we get back, and we have seen a bit of an increase in that, and that's helped to bump that number up a little bit as well. Thank you. Thanks for asking. Yeah. Okay, so that was our budget. A couple of other drivers I just wanted to talk about. One was about enrollment, since we talked about in projections. So I guess, so what this chart shows is our enrollment in the schools. So this is school enrollment, the number of students at each school. This doesn't include like out of district. It doesn't include students who attend other districts, obviously. And the blue block at the bottom is Chatham, then orange is Harwich, grey is the middle school, and yellow is the high school. And so, broadly, you can see the numbers have been going down. The total has been on a gentle trend down since FY16. Well, it's a little harder to discern, but it is there. That yellow block has actually got bigger. So if you look at FY25, we're at 739 right now at the high school. That's the highest it's ever been. But then below that, and the numbers that are going to come up into the high school, Chatham is the lowest it's been, or one of the lowest it's ever been. Harwich is one of the lowest it's ever been. The middle school. So we know that we have this bubble leaving the high school, but there aren't the numbers in the school to replace all those students. So we know that enrollment's going to go down in coming years.
I would just observe
Yes.
that it's stunning that the enrollment is projected to decrease by almost 4% next year.
Yes.
The budget is up by 7%.
Yeah.
The cost per student is up between 10 and 11% per student in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's painful for our
Yes.
budget.
It is. It's very
Fringe
painful.
benefits. Fringe
Yeah.
benefits drive.
And it's driven by partly those things, partly just the cost of running the buildings, and the cost of, so students' needs have broadened and widened and are more expensive to meet in the building.
Because we're right at the levy limit, and I don't know, another year of this, and other costs growing
Yeah.
modestly is gonna put us over.
And we will see, and so we were able to reduce the position at the middle school and at Harwich, and you can see in the coming years, by FY29 we'll have 100 fewer students at high school, and for the other elementary schools, those projections assume students are coming in. I made some assumptions based on birth rate, but birth rate is notoriously difficult to use because people move around so much. So if anything, I would say those might be slightly exaggeration of how much we might actually see students come in the door.
What is your cost share on health insurance?
70-30.
Which is the same as the municipality?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
I think the
so.
town might be 75.
I think that's what I heard too.
25, right? Yeah. 70-30. Have you considered at all exploring?
So I will say, we really are in a difficult battle for recruitment and retention of staff.
Yeah, so it's untouchable.
And it's driving it. So, there's just fewer people living on the Cape available to work, and if we make the offer for people less attractive, it will just be higher.
Is it similar to what other districts? Is that what pretty much that's the going
all
rate?
districts I've ever worked in.
Yeah.
So, Michael, you said you're going to maybe refine this a little and get back with the final one. And what's the
Yes.
date on that?
March 13th.
March 13th?
Yes.
And you're gonna assure me it's not gonna go up? And potentially-
Everything I know right now, it's not going to go up.
Okay, thank you.
If some crazy thing happens in the next 2 weeks, then
I was gonna suggest a good target would be a 3.3% increase for Harwich, because that's how much our levy limit is going up next year. But I know that that's just from our perspective, without understanding all of the pressures you're feeling and all the motivations behind the $830,000 of new increases. That would be equilibrium for us, just to give you our
But-
perspective.
It does start to get to be a challenge where what's the ratio of town operating budget versus schools? I mean, in a lot of districts, the town's going like this and,
schools.
Yep.
that's because it's so expensive.
The other thing is, isn't your state funding tied, Chapter 70 tied to your enrollment?
Chapter 70. So it is based on enrollment. However, there is so the enrollment, there is we're held harmless, so we never go down. So
Oh,
it doesn't increase because our enrollment's not increasing, but we get a per pupil minimum increase of like $30.
oh, so that's, you're
$30
protected
effectively.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
And
Running out of time. Just one thing. I would suggest that your ELL enrollment is going to plateau. I don't know if you figured your additional personnel based on increasing growth, but with TPS statuses being revoked and everything else you see for immigration, I've heard in Orleans, family has moved out with 3 children back to their native country. So I would suggest you look at that. I would suggest that your ELL numbers are going to plateau and perhaps decrease based on outside factors.
Yeah, and I guess my only conservative pushback is, the staffing that's in this budget is really to go deal with the children that we have currently in the system. I mean, we've seen in the last couple of years a pretty significant uptick, and well aware that there's pressures coming the other direction. But the children that we currently have with us, we have more need than we have staffing to address.
Can we get 1 minute on MCAS scores and how our kids are doing and all that good stuff?
I didn't prepare anything, but
Just off the top of your head.
okay, well, I'll give you, just to give you a minute. So I just wanted to show you this one slide. So, which compares our per pupil cost to other districts, just because we are very conscious, like we're not, we're conscious of providing an economically viable school district that also meets the needs of our students. And so this just shows you how our per pupil, now this is FY23, because this is the most recent data available, but it shows you that we are, that shows how we compare to like NOSIT, to DY, and to the state. So we're not at the top of this range. We're kind of in the two-thirds, top third, and I think that's a reasonable place to be, especially given the costs in this area of the state. And it's not changed significantly. There's more slides that show the same thing. And I would say our percentage increase last year was significant, but not as much as other districts around here. And I think that's why we're seeing a slightly larger increase this year. We forestalled it for 1 year, but those costs are catching up, all the different costs. All right, and keep talking.
Okay.
That's okay. So I can give you some data year over year, but you can also find that on the report cards. But we run about 50% of our kids in mathematics, ELA, and science at above or exceeding expectations, which is just about at the state level or just slightly above the state level as far as those data points. We're doing a lot of work in those areas. As you know, MCAS got decoupled from the graduation requirement, but the MCAS is still a really important driver for us for accountability and making sure our students are getting the standards and the frameworks that they need. So that's about where we're running right now. But I can send you the link for
I was
all
just
the report
curious.
cards.
I always like the good news.
Yeah.
And I've got a slide tomorrow afternoon. I speak at the Chatham Men's Club, and I have a slide in there that talks about graduation rates and, and our kids and the number of our kids heading off to college. So, so we we far exceed the state average in number of kids heading off to college, and we really lead the Cape on the number of kids, percentage of our kids that are heading off. I mean, that's where the rubber kind of hits the road if you're looking at at a high school. Oh,
Yeah, you
the
want to
other
see
thing-
results, right?
Yeah, the other thing that we're really proud of is
Numbers on the graduation rate.
is we have our internship program has almost gone up by an order of magnitude in terms of the number of students that are getting career experiences while in high school. So it starts as early as junior year now that we have children going out, but I think we have over 100 students in the junior, senior year that are heading out and getting career experiences while also getting their core academics with us.
How does that work? Is it weeks, or is it a month, or is it,
So-
how does it work?
So it's a class that they take.
Oh,
Sherry Armstrong runs our program, and it has just grown
That's
and grown
great.
and grown. So we have so many community partners that are involved in that.
So the graduation rates, 92% of our students went to a four-year college last year. So, and then 68% went to a post-secondary school of some
Nice,
sort.
yeah.
And then 53.3 four-year institutions, and then 14.8 went to a two-year.
Do you see many taking advantage of 4Cs being tuition free?
Well, it's funny, we're seeing that, yes, but it's not necessarily as robust as you would think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's really something that, we're watching and trying to think about some some pathways, some better pathways to lead people to believe that's a really good opportunity,
Yeah.
as far as economically goes. But yes, I would have thought it would be a little bit higher, but 14.3% of our students going to a two-year seems low when it's free.
Yeah.
But that state initiative came in after last year's seniors
Right.
tended to make their college plans, and then if you adjusted your college plans and said, okay, I want to take advantage of it, the 4Cs was actually overwhelmed and had to go and shut off enrollment fairly quickly. So like the window was open for free college at the community college, but it closed just because so many individuals did take advantage of it, which is great.
Sure. Okay, we're gonna end it here. We thank you very much,
Thank
as
you
always.
very much.
And
Excellent.
appreciate you coming in. If we have any follow-up questions, we'll get them to you, but we look forward to your final version,
Yep.
which will be half of what you gave
March
us today.
13th, yeah. Half of what we gave you.
What's that?
Did you say it would be half of what we gave you?
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you, but
If you'd
thank
like
you.
any more information, just reach out to my.
Yep, no problem at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stop sharing.
Thank you. How you doing?
Already with working people,
Huh?
a couple
Good.
of
Crazy
people,
recently.
but I know
I'll give you a
that
call.
they take advantage of the 4Cs.
Oh, okay.
free education.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that may be the group that's really immediately picked
okay.
up on it.
Line item budgets
Yep.
here if anybody wants a copy.
Oh, great, thank
There's
you.
lots more information on the website.
Okay, thank you. We're just clearing the room and we'll get organized on the public hearing in a minute.
How about I go?
Joe, you're out there? I see his, yep,
He was there.
here he comes. Hi, Joe, how you doing?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you
Yep,
hear
you
me?
got us, yep. Okay,
Perfect. All right, good evening.
that's good. Just hang in there for a minute. We're just getting ourselves organized. Okay, so next on the agenda is a public hearing on the Harwich 2026 operating budget. So I'd ask the clerk to read the notice of the public hearing.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to Chapter 9, Section 3 of the Town of Harwich Charter, the Finance Committee will hold a public hearing Thursday, February 27, 2025, at 6 p.m. for the purpose of reviewing the fiscal year 2025 budget. All members of the public having an interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend. The meeting will be held in Harwich Town Hall, small reading room, 732 Main Street, Harwich, Mass. Remote participation is offered. Please see the posted agenda for dial-in information.
Okay, with that, I'll call the public hearing to order, if you will, or open the public hearing. I'll note that Joe Powers, the town administrator, is with us remotely. Dana DeCosta from the Finance Committee remains remotely out there. here in person for the Finance Committee, we have Dan Twerk, Mark Kelleher, Scott Norm, Bob McCready, Michelle Galucci, and myself, Peter Hughes. I see Selectman Jeff Handler is out in the audience with us, and Linda Sabula is with us. So that is the extent of the folks that are here. So we have at least one member of the public here, which is fabulous. Okay.
Do you need a copy of the budget? Do you have one?
Yeah, we do have
Okay, I don't know if we have some copies.
the latest one that came out last night or whatever, night before, whatever, last night, I guess. Yeah, okay, all right, so you're all set. Okay, all right, so, Joe, just so you know, I have prepared, just myself going through it, just a single sheet to summarize sort of what's here, so everybody could see that, and there's no surprises here, but I thought for the benefit of the viewing public that I'll just read through these things. You can tell me if any of them are wrong or different, or they're all from the information that was provided to us, and then I would ask you to get into any details of the budget you'd like to, and then we'll open it up for comments and questions at that point in time. I don't know if anybody.
Bottom of the deck.
So as of oh, that's those are my notes, thank you. As of February 27th, which is today, total town budget FY26 at $47,386,810. That's a plus 3.6% increase. I gave you some figures from previous years. The actual in FY 2024 end of year, which would have been last June, was $39,794,932, and that was 94.1% of the budget. So we budget, and then, you know, for the year, and then we spend. And the one thing we don't want to do is outspend the budget, because we can't. And so for that year, latest year on record, we spent about 94.1% of the budget. Our debt service going forward looks to be $3,439,971, which is a decrease of 2.7%. What drives our budget? Cost of living at 2%, which is built into the budget sheets now. Retirement assessment up 4%. Group health insurance up 6.5%. Other post-employment benefits at 100%. That has to do with how much we're going to set aside, hopefully, for that topic. Property and liability insurance plus 10. As we all know, the Finance Committee requested a $75,000 increase in our reserve fund. So we look like a big actor at plus 150%. But if it stays there, it does get us back to, you know, something reasonable for this size of a budget. No new positions. Outstanding debt as of 6/30/24 was $45,417,716. But as I think Selectman Howell was pointing out, authorized and unused debt at that same time is $73,095,533. That's an authorization. We have not borrowed that money, so it's things like wastewater primarily. Okay. The reserve balances as of last June 30th, stabilization fund at $6,097,504. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, basically $2.2 million. Wastewater $1.7 million. OPED $6.3 million. The source of the revenue for FY 2026, the levy limit, $62,253,277, which is up 3.33%. Other sources, $21,401,981, up 14.08%, and total sources being $83,655,258, which represents a 5.88% increase. Local receipts, which people ask about frequently for FY 24, were estimated at $15,425,923, and the actual for that year $18,533,062, which represented plus 20.8%. 5.14%, and certified free cash, which is certified the 28th of January this year, at $5,821,439. That's the summary.
Nice.
All right, Joe, would you like to dive into anything, or how would you like to handle this?
Move we adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, you've covered everything.
Well, I don't think so, but
Well, if I could build on that, but first of all, thank you, because you've captured certainly where we're at and where the select board was at Monday evening, the 24th. The only thing I would add is the numbers that you've referenced in sources and uses. Sources and uses is an ongoing forecast situation, and the board has not taken any express votes yet on sources and uses. Of course, you'll see that more directly in the articles and the motions for the articles themselves. However, Mr. Chairman, I think you've covered everything to start out with. There's really nothing I think I need to highlight beyond what you put out there. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or speak to any concerns.
okay, so let me ask just a couple, because somebody has to start, right? When I look at the town engineer budget, I just have to find it here. Oh, here we go. The expenses to the town engineer went up by or proposed to go up by $100,000. What's in that? Is this something we're
So,
contracting for, or?
Sorry, go ahead.
I said, is this something we're contracting for the year or something, or what is it?
Well, I just want to make sure first we're literally on the same page. You're looking at what would be the Appendix B document to start.
Yes.
I think,
I'm on the bottom of page 2.
Yep, so
Yep.
we're looking at lines 92 and 93. And again, this is Department 411, which is town engineer. So the salaries and wages, we have the contractual obligation with the Management Association to continue to populate that
Yep.
line item, and we've done that. But until at such time as an incumbent fills that role, we are relying upon various engineering contracts for those services. And then I think the majority of what you're looking at under the expense line is relating to the town's obligation for the state's MS4 program. So in years past, we've done, I think one time it was on the capital plan, but it's truly not capital. I think one time there was an article, and so now we're incorporating that within the engineering department budget, because when we had an engineer, that was his bailiwick, and that would be the town engineer's bailiwick going forward.
So how much is that figure? Of the 140, how much of that is what you just described?
Sure, let me just get to the budget reports from Munis. And I think, Mr. Chairman, you folks have those as well, correct?
Yep, we do, yep.
Excuse me.
You could point us to a page or something, it'd be helpful,
Certainly.
once you find the page.
Page 12.
Page 12, all right, I'm told it's page 12. Town engineer, here we go.
Yep, thank you. So page 12, and specifically for the MS4 services, you can see that under other professional technical services. You can see where for 25 we had basically department expenditures, and now we're increasing that by $100,000, which is the anticipated cost for the town to do the MS4 work as required by the contract.
Okay, but the MS4 work, if we don't have a town engineer, does that get subcontracted out to somebody?
So even when we had a town engineer, there was a vendor relationship. Of course, I'm going to draw a blank on a particular firm right now.
Well, that's okay.
But I know that our town engineer, our last incumbent town engineer, partners with a vendor firm that is recognized by the state as a valid resource on MS4. Now, that's not to say as we go forward, we wouldn't have that fully in-house, but that would be more when you have a town engineer and, say, a surveyor to have those functions covered by both of those individuals. So there could still be a vendor relationship were there to be a town engineer. However, 100% right now it's a vendor relationship.
Okay, so this MS4 program, what is the actual deliverable the town gets? Is
So the
it,
town has to do, first of all, reporting that we're in compliance by having MS4 review. Generally speaking, you may be aware of it anytime. There are some site plan reviews that are going before a planning board that often triggers the MS4 review, stormwater review. And so that's where presently VHB is our assigned engineering firm. So the applicant that's doing site plan, who would also have to be required to show stormwater mitigation, works through them. They review all of their plans. They make the recommendations to the select board as the overall stormwater regulatory body for the town, operating under the town's existing stormwater regulations. And so that's part of the vendor relationship. The requirements to the state are proof that we're doing that on a regular basis. And I think, if memory serves correctly, the ask this year is required, I want to say 4th year reporting back to the state. So
Okay.
there's ongoing efforts, and there's also reporting out that has to happen to the state on a regular basis.
okay. Dana, did you have a question on that?
Yeah, I just to be clear, I think, so the person is covered in the budget, and if we get the person in place, it could result in a turn back at the end of the year because we didn't use all of the contracted work. Is that?
That's correct, that's correct, yep, that's that hypothetical, correct.
No worries.
You're building free cash. Okay, all right, so my next question, again, I'm working off this summary sheet. And I want to get all the way to, let's see. Don't worry, you're going to get your chance to ask questions, folks. Just let me. When we get all the way to the end of this, line 158, property and liability insurance, the basically $976,000 increase. Have we looked at, Joe, adjusting deductibles to try and tamp some of this down, or is that not appropriate?
It's not that it's not appropriate, but what we do is, first of all, this is predominantly our obligations to Maya, which I'm going to try it, is the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association. And perhaps not for the FinCom benefit, you may know this, but for anyone that may be watching. So that is basically the insurance company created by cities and towns in the Commonwealth. So we, Town of Harwich, are a Maya customer with regard to property and liability insurances. So we do an annual review of our deductibles, of our coverages, and certainly as we go through town meeting, say if we acquire more vehicles, we add those to the list. But we also have every department that has either a building and or other item that would appear on their insurance schedules. We're tracking those regularly and updating annually. What we see is the best benefit right now is for Maya, they're telling us to expect a 10% increase year over year in premiums and deductibles. However, when they presented to the Mass Municipal Association, their overall concept was that their costs were going up merely 1%. So as much as we want to be excited that our insurance only went up 1%, the reality is the coverages that we have in Harwich, we're looking at a 10% increase year over year. Last but not least, we participate in programs at the staff level where we get points for doing trainings and proving that we're smart about certain activities and exercises. When we earn those points, that helps us get deductions on our premiums overall. And then we also typically do the prompt early payment, which is soon after the fiscal year. They give us a bill, and I believe is generally a 5 to 8% reduction on what we would pay throughout the year if we pay up front.
Okay,
So
thanks.
when we do the reviews annually, it really more often than not holds true over time. because we're adding and removing from the schedules. I can tell you, however, when they do this exercise, not only me, but Megan Eldridge, Assistant Town Administrator, and of course for buildings, Sean and Link, we push back on some of their commentary, and we have an opportunity, for lack of a better word, to challenge where they think the coverage is at. Mercifully, we haven't had to do that in recent years because we felt as though their actuarial work and their schedules are accurate.
Okay. And just while I have the floor before I get to you folks, I know Jeff reported back to me the discussion I guess the board had relative to the 204 going into the budget as opposed to a revolving account. I have not shared that with my board. I don't know if you guys want to say something about it, like you're going to talk about it on the 17th of March or whatever, but I'll just throw that out there.
You just said it. We're going to talk about it on the 17th.
Okay, all right. So my understanding is the finance director or whomever is going to develop numbers and you're going to see numbers, is that?
We're still working on it.
Okay, no, I'm not saying you have the numbers, I'm just saying you're headed that way.
Yeah,
Okay,
I believe so.
all right. And I would just say it's still the intent of this board that happens, so I think I've told you that enough, so. Anyhow, all right, let's open it up to other questions from the board. Dana, let's start with you. Do you have other questions?
I'd rather start with the public. You say there was public there, or?
We have Mrs. Sabula sitting here as the public. And she hopes, I know, but she hopes to have her thought process spurred by your asking questions, and she's ready to go, so.
All right, I guess overall, I think this is a good budget. I think this is something we can work with. The school number, to me, is too high. And I think that we need to put pressure on them to use more of their E&D to bring that number down. If they have a bubble, and they have a situation where this is a temporary high, it's a big increase, I think that temporarily we could use more of their E&D, and then when the numbers are going down, we can ask them, help support them to bring their E&D back up. In other words, that is for emergencies, and it looks like right now, as a town, we have an emergency. As you know, where I sit on the state board in Western Mass, towns are going through this dropping enrollment and increasing school budgets. And anybody that looked at that 3-year projection coming up, if you think your budget's going to go down over those years, what they're finding out in Western Mass is that it's not going down. The school budgets are still going up, enrollments are going down, and they're ahead of us on this curve than we are on Cape Cod right now. And it's destroying their towns. They're saying they're dying by 1,000 cuts because they have to support this higher budget, especially in regional districts, and they end up taking it more and more out of their municipalities, and I don't want to see Harwich go down that way. So I think that we should look at finding ways to get through this temporary bubble and then try and level things out at a lower number increase each year. That's my only comment on that.
All right, thank you. Since you mentioned Mrs. Sabula, do you have any comments or observations, Linda, you'd like to share with us?
Not particularly.
Okay, we at least asked. All right, Dan, do you have questions, comments?
No comments.
Okay, Mark?
Just two. Joe, you said Maya's costs went up 1%, but what they're charging is going up 10%. Just explain that a little bit better for me, if you would mind.
Joe, every year at MMA on the Saturday morning, excuse me, Maya goes through their presentation where they talk about their group health insurance. We're not part of that. But when they presented that, we saw that those premiums went up 14.7% year over year. When they then talk about property and liability, the comment was that for them, their costs went up 1%. However, that's not universal. That's what the costs are to them. We're not impacted by that in the sense of we were working on a 10% increase year over year for premiums based on our specific coverages and the growth that we've seen anyway with some of the buildings, you know, as far as replacement costs and whatever. So the comparison would be, while they were talking about 14.7% increase in their health insurance, we in Cape Cod were looking at 6.5% through our Cape Cod Municipal Health Group. We don't have a comparison for property and liability, so that's why I mentioned what they said their rates were going up for them rather than what our premiums are going.
Okay,
And
keep going.
enhancement of services, do we deal with that? Is that strictly a select board? When do we go over that, the people who made their presentations last week to us?
I think, well, my opinion, and it's sort of outside the budget at the moment, but my opinion is that the select board figures out what they really want to do, if they want to do anything, and then we can opine on that. Okay? I mean, I think it was pretty clear last week in the presentation that the guidance was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe or Jeff, that if you wanted to add a body, you need to figure out a way to pay for it, right? That's the message I heard, and you heard, you know, one or two presentations that sort of figured that out, right? And some that didn't. So I mean, I think the selectmen have to give us some guidance, and the town some guidance as to, you know, what they want to see for town services going forward. So,
Thank you.
okay, hey, you done?
I'm all done.
Okay, Scott?
So I was looking back at the last time, or the first time we saw the full sources and uses summary, and I think that was February 3rd. And we've seen a couple of helpful changes since then, I believe. One of which is in Appendix B, where costs have gone down by $429,000 since February 3rd. So I'm just imagining what the sources and uses is going to look like now. That's a help. And that February 3rd version was pretty much right on balance. I guess as it should be. Sources and uses equal to each other. And then the other good news we just heard when Monomoy gave us a new deck, which had a total Harwich assessment of $31.5 million compared to $32.3 million on February 3rd, which is another $800,000 of change in the right direction. So we've got like $1.1 or $1.2 million of good news since February 3rd. And I'm just wondering, maybe it's premature to even ask, but if that's true and it remains true, where do you think you would change your assumptions in the sources and uses that we saw on February 3rd? And I'm thinking that if it were me, I would look at the local receipts and other revenue, which I think were aggressive on February 3rd.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yep, sure.
First, thank you, and thank you for the observations. Excuse me. I want to first put out there what I've been saying for the last few weeks, forecast. I agree with you, Scott, I think in the sense that we want to memorialize these things as they happen, but also recognize that we're still in forecast mode on a go-forward basis. However, for my purposes, what you've said is precisely what I would recommend. That as we further refine, to me the area that we want to be strongest on as far as forecast and presumption are those estimated local receipts. You know, I would rather it be less aggressive. But remember, part of the concept that Ed and I were applying sort of dovetails to the other narrative that's been out there that is, quote, free cash is bad. So we know just looking at the actual versus the estimates, when you're talking about 5.7 million in free cash, and 3.2 of that is because of the delta between what we estimated would happen in our resort town and what actually occurred, that drives up free cash. So first and foremost, it's forecast. Secondly, absolutely always want to be as close to accurate as possible on estimated receipts. But again, the story there is if we're bringing in more estimated receipts, it's more because we still remain an attractive destination. And so, you know, that's where I'm coming from. But you're right, as these things smooth out, and as we get closer to what we expect to be the final numbers ahead of May 5th, I always want to make sure that our estimated receipts are such that we can meet them, and then the quote problem becomes when we exceed them, estimate to actual.
And I just say that I think the biggest unknown or risk to this whole process, if you will, and where we think we are versus where we're going to end up, has to do with labor negotiations. And until those are concluded or we have indication as to what that impact is, it could be a big difference in here, you know. So, just an observation.
And so I had one other question, if
Yeah,
I
keep
may.
going, keep going.
I was looking, now that the salary forecast has been distributed out of the administration line, as you told us a few meetings ago you would be doing, we see that now in Appendix B, and we see the salary and wage increases now populated in each department. The one that strikes me as large is in fire, where the increase is 6%, after I think it's like 9% increase from 24 to 25, another 6% increase from 25 to 26. This is line 76 in Appendix B. And I just wonder I looked at the details in the Munis report. I couldn't really get a feel for what the details behind that surprisingly large increase are. The percentage increases you can't really look at in the Munis report because they don't really refer to the change from 25 to 26. It's some other delta that's being reported. But I'm wondering if you can give us any background on the 6% increase.
So generally, I think I can. I do want to, I'm not sure if Dana's getting the same phenomenon I am. It seemed like you were cutting in and out on some of your audio. I just want to make sure I've captured the question. I know you're looking in Appendix B under Department 220, the Fire Department. And if I'm in that right area, we're also on page 9 of the Munis deck. And you're looking for information on the 6% increase, salaries and wages year over year? Is
Right.
that accurate?
Right. Looks like overtime is a big driver.
Yes, you have contractual increases on the salaries and wages line itself. Excuse me, you have the overtime line itself that's going up. And then, of course, you have longevity. And I think the short and simple on that is, and I think the chief has said this already, that if you look at the roster for our fire department, it skews towards veteran firefighters. And so that's where that's going to show up on the longevity line as well. And I think generally speaking, beyond that, everything else is, if there's an increase, it's still rather benign, if I can say that, year over year. The other thing I'm noticing, however, is I'm also concerned about the 6% in the Appendix B as a formula, because the numbers don't jive when you look at Munis. So you can see that we have 5.48 and 24, 5.8 and 20, and 5.4 and 25, and 5.8 and 26. And the Munis report is saying that salaries and wages went up 1.6%.
But that percentage is referring, I believe, from the revised budget, the third column from the left, to the next column over. And why that's the percentage being displayed, I don't know. It ought to be...
Thank you, the 5.5 to the 5.8, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, first of all, we can correct that. We can make sure we're using really just one line, if you will, for 26. So it's 25 to 26.
Yeah.
But I still think we've captured the main areas. You're looking at the salaries and wages increasing for overtime, longevity, and other contractual obligations outside of wage adjustment.
I guess the real question boils down to the increase in overtime, which is not 1.3% like it says on Munis, but if you give me just a sec, it is approximately 12.5% from the 25 budget to the 26 selectmen column. And I just don't know what, is that from input from the chief or some other model that expects
Well,
that?
I believe it was
kind of an
input
increase?
by the chief. I also believe he gave commentary and narrative to that during what was referred to as the deep dive. So that would have been on, I believe that would have been February 18th, which was the Tuesday meeting. So I can go back through the board's materials and also check the chief of blank. It is overtime that's moving the needle, but I believe he also spoke to the purpose of that better than I can tonight.
Joe, didn't he talk about how they adjust staffing, you know, as so many ambulances get called out and that kind of thing, and their callback, and how many people actually end up in the station when they're called out? There was a change in the way they do it. And I had the numbers right, but they were trying to end up with like a fully staffed station instead of having an empty station with 2 ambulances run or something like that. I think there was some adjustment there, and it was, I would just call it a, you know, better quality of service, quite frankly. So,
I think your recollection is correct, Peter, as well.
yeah, so, okay.
You know, the last actual we have on the Munis report is only 1.1 million in 2024. We don't have any other actuals, obviously, but that's even huger increase compared to 2024, 50% increase.
So Joe, do you want to take an action to circle back on that with the chief and just give us a response here, or we could have the chief in, but whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I will certainly report out in the morning. We have meetings anyway.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
All right, great. All right,
Thank you.
That's it.
you good? Bob?
I guess a question then a comment. The question is really just, and really, I guess it's just a follow-up to the last questioners in both fire and police, that I'm looking at the comparison to 24, and in both cases now, we've got a budget that's both in fire and police that's running about 20% higher than the actuals for 24. So we've managed to add, or we're budgeting to have added 20% in both cases just to salaries and wages area over the course of 2 years. And so I guess I would add to the previous comments that it would be nice to get additional feedback on that. And then my separate comment is just, I think, just a mechanical comment, Joe. I'm looking at the Appendix B that was sent out and the Munis report. And I'm looking at, on Appendix B, I'm looking at, towards the end, the semi-fixed and fixed cost, so OPEB and group health insurance.
Yeah.
And in the Appendix B, I have group health insurance for $6,167,000, and then separately OPEB contribution of $500,000. And then I go over to Munis, and the same area, which is just called group health insurance in Munis.
What page, Sean?
That is
Page 22.
page 22 in Munis, I guess, has a total that includes OPEB of $6,167,000. So I'm kind of wondering whether there's anything mechanical going on here, or whether I'm misreading this.
No, I would agree with the concept of the mechanics, if you will. I think what's happening in the Munis report is we've got more columns than we need. So it's really, as Scott had identified, it's really what is the percentage change based on within the 26 requests, generally speaking, and then I'm going to make sure that, when we talk about in Appendix B, our actual number is our actual for 24. I believe we're recording, or we're trying to record in Appendix B, the 2025 revised budget, So that would be what town meeting voted and whatever transfers and such were done. And then really what the munis report should show would be the select board column itself. So you'd have 2024 actual, either 2025 original budget or revised budget, we'll confirm which one. And then 2026 should be select board. And that gives you the better comparison, because I think I see what you're getting to generally. You know, we're talking about a 6.5% increase year over year in our group health insurance numbers. That's a flat number that came to us from Municipal Health Group. So the question would be how that manifests itself in Munis, because it should be on line 57575000, or the last line on page 21. And that's still reflecting what appears to be a 9.6% increase, so you need to verify that. And then town retirement, same situation where that's meant to be the retirees, the town's obligation for retirees on health insurance. So I do think there's some mechanics going on here generally. I think that accounting would tell me that they have greater faith right now in Appendix B, and can go back over and revisit the mechanics of the
What it ends up meaning, Joe, is that the two reports end up with different totals if you
Right.
and so yes, if you can get somebody in accounting to end up getting that clarified, that would be good.
Absolutely, and I will tell you that, you know, again, right now, accounting is Megan Green, and I put that out there only to thank and applaud. She's doing phenomenal work, and I know her main focus has been drawing data from Munis into Appendix B. So the mechanics on the Munis reporting will be a joint effort between administration and finance to get to the end result you're looking for, Bob.
Okay, great.
So if I could follow up, if Munis is the Bible, then Appendix B appears to be overstating expenses by $500,000 for the OPEB, because it's listing it on top of the 6167.
That's exactly right.
Another way of saying
Yeah.
what Bob said.
I mean, there are a couple of other little glitches, but it's basically $500,000.
Okay, you good, Scott? You good, Bob?
I'm good. Yeah.
Michelle?
I'm fine.
Okay. Anybody else? Last chance. Linda?
Just, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to comment that your one-pager is so clear as to what's going on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I knew I had to say something at this meeting, so I wanted to come sort of prepared. But you know, any of us can do the same thing if you take the time to wander through the information and data that's been presented, including, Joe, your PowerPoint that you made several weeks ago. The information is there, but yeah, no, that's... Okay, so at this point in time, there are no other comments. I'm going to close the public hearing, okay? And then we'll move on to old business. So we close the public hearing at 6:44. And Joe, just while we have you here, and Jeff, do you have a handle on when we, the Finance Committee, will see a warrant?
So from my perspective, you should be receiving articles in the sense that I know you folks have been starting your work. We've gotten information, I think, through Mark, and so my team's tracking that. I can send you the very same version that the Select Board's working off of. However, the Select Board did place several articles, and my team, if they haven't already, was going to be sending that to you folks immediately.
Oh, okay.
So that you can continue your work. I can certainly provide it in any manner that you wish thus far. If you've been following with the Select Board, what we've done prior to next Monday night is a version that's based on the type of article. We're talking Monday evening about the numbering structure, so I'll get more direction from the Select Board on that. But in the meantime, you can certainly get them as we have them by type.
Yeah, we more care about what the article is rather than how it's numbered or, you know, where it shows up. Because as you know, we have to, I think it's by March 31st, have to turn in the written recommendations from FinCom, so, yeah. So, okay. Anything else for Joe?
I don't
All right.
think so.
Good? Anything else, anybody else have any other?
Uh,
Go ahead.
As I mentioned to you earlier, Mr. Chairman, we are scheduled to finish up our last scheduled meetings on March 13th. Correct me
Okay,
if-
so let me just jump in. The Finance Committee is meeting next Thursday, which is the 5th, right?
6th.
6th, I'm sorry. It's a Thursday, and we will have water wastewater at that meeting. And by the way, I sent you that packet. Hopefully everybody got it. Danny, did you get it? The water wastewater pack? Yeah, okay, good. And we're starting that meeting at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock to accommodate the water superintendent and the commissioners, whatever. And then a week from then, on the 13th, 3/13, we'll schedule the meeting. That will be our normal second Thursday meeting at 6 p.m. in this room, basically to go through budget warrant items. So that'll be a working session for us, and we should make some good progress then. So now what you're talking about is going beyond that to schedule something for the following week, right?
Correct, because correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, there'll probably be some articles that will be decided on the 18th. And I wanted to give us some time to have us go over them and accept and adopt and do our thing. So I had suggested to the chairman that perhaps we could schedule a meeting for the 18th to capture all the things that we haven't captured before and that the select board caught.
And that is a Tuesday.
That is a Tuesday. It doesn't have to be a Tuesday, but
No,
trying
that
to
week.
be cognizant of when things close and to give Dana and I time to write up our little spiel
Yeah.
for each article.
That day works for me. I don't know how it works for everybody else, but
When's that?
I have a conflict from 6 to 7, unfortunately, on that Tuesday.
okay. Well,
What Tuesday is that?
the 18th, the day after St. Patrick's Day, quite frankly.
That should be okay.
And Mark, you're going to check the room for availability.
Quick thing, could we do it where is your meeting close enough by?
It's all Zoom, I'm gonna be out of town, so 5 would be a help to me.
It's okay for me if you can get the room. Let me know what you can get.
Okay.
I might be late to a 5 o'clock.
Me too.
And we can discuss that next week as well.
Okay. Well,
So when we meet with water wastewater next Thursday, we can update on that date for the 18th or something around there. And just check on the room, we'll go from there.
Okay. Great.
Okay? Any other? Hearing none, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second?
Undebatable. Dan? Yes. Home?
Aye.
Scott? Bob? Dana? You want to go home? Yeah, you're already home. All right, Michelle?
Okay.
Service and I. All right, we are adjourned, and it is 6:49. Thank you all for participating. Good to see you all. Want to shut?
Oh, you too.
Huh?